Hey, it's Craig Russell from the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Todd and I both want everyone in Midland and everyone being affected by the flooding to know our thoughts and prayers are with you. Stay tuned during the show for details how you might be able to get help from Levitt Law and some of the best class action attorneys in the nation. It's information you'll need to hear.
Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.
My friends and I always tune into the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. Todd is entertaining, informative, and always delivers the goods.
Todd might not tell you what you want to hear, but he's going to tell you what you need to hear. And all you got to do is listen.
Hold on, Todd. Don't let go. It's time for the Todd L. Levitt Law Show.
It was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long. Caught somewhere between a boy and man. She was 17 and she was far from in between. It was summertime in northern Michigan. Splashing through the sandbar, talking by the campfire. It's the simple things in life, like when and where. We didn't have no internet, but man, I never will forget the way the moonlight shined upon her hair. And we were trying different things, and we were smoking funny things, making love out by the lake to our favorite song, sipping whiskey out the bottle, not thinking about tomorrow, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. Singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long.
Welcome to the Todd L. Levitt Marijuana Law Podcast. Good morning, good evening, and good night. I'm yours truly, attorney Todd L. Levitt, broadcasting and podcasting in a beautiful green nutrient field in beautiful northern Michigan. So says Kid Rock. Craig Russell, the muscle. How you doing, Craig?
I am trying to stay dry. The rivers are kind of flooded around Midland and everything, so I'm trying. I've got my rubbers on and my hip waders on, and I'm just trying to make it through the day, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and you are referring to the dams that broke in mid-Michigan.
Yeah.
One in Sanford and Edenville. I believe it was Sanford. Was it Sanford? One was Edenville.
Yeah, something like that. It's
and it was all over national news. And I have a lot of friends that live below the dams, and they had to evacuate. And man, our thoughts and prayers. We say this every week. It's unfortunate, but they do go out to everyone who and their families that were and still are affected by those dams breaching like that and breaking, not breaching, just breaking.
So coronavirus, murder hornets, now the floods. What's next, man? This year has been just miserable. What's next?
Well, it's Memorial Day weekend. That's one thing.
Yes.
And the great state of Michigan, it appears almost open completely and, cranking it once again. At least northern Michigan is cranking it. And look, there are a lot of businesses in southern Michigan, central Michigan that are also back open.
And the UP, don't forget.
Happy to see that.
The UP is reopened.
Upper Peninsula, yeah.
Yep, exactly. So.
And Kid Rock is from Michigan. A lot of people do not know that.
Yep.
But Kid Rock, I may be wrong, but I believe he grew up in Romeo, Michigan.
It's somewhere like that. I think he lives like in Clarkston, or he owns a brewery or something in Clarkston, or a restaurant or something like that. I don't know.
Not sure. I love Kid Rock.
You know what his real name is?
John?
No, but a nice guess. Bob Ritchie is his name.
Bob Ritchie, that's right, Bob Ritchie. Robert Ritchie. You were supposed to get either Ted Nugent, Uncle Ted, or Kid Rock on today's show. All right, Craig, I'm putting you on the spot. So is either one of those individuals coming on the broadcast podcast here.
Thank God we got Kid Rock's music, because that's the only thing that's going to make it. No, I didn't get either one of them.
The closest thing we have to a rock star is Denise Porlicella.
Yeah.
She's coming on the show to talk about employment law in relation to everything taking place in the world today. And Big Hair, who looks like Bob Seger. He can't sing worth a lick, but when we're out and about, he does look like Bob Seger.
Yeah, he does. He
Big
really does.
Hair is going to announce one of his professions. We never disclose his identity just to protect his employment and everything else that he deals with on a daily basis, but specifically his employment. But he does have another job description that he's willing to disclose today. So we'll be happy to talk to Big Hair about that.
Wow. Okay. That's some interesting, exciting holiday weekend news. What are you doing this holiday weekend?
Just spending time in northern Michigan, listening to Kid Rock and Uncle Ted.
Of course, we do. You do remember we have to remember what the reason for the weekend is. Why do we have this long weekend? It's Memorial Day. We are memorializing our fallen combat soldiers, our fallen military who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country. There's 3 main military holidays. There's Veterans Day, which of course celebrates veterans. There's Armed Forces Day, which celebrates current members of the military. And there's Memorial Day, which memorializes people who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country and for the freedoms that we get to enjoy. You can enjoy this nice long weekend in our beautiful state due to people who sacrificed and gave their lives for our freedom. So that's what this weekend's all about.
We love our vets and can't say enough to support our veterans and their families, those who have served and who have sacrificed. Absolutely.
You know, it wouldn't be a holiday weekend if, Todd, you didn't have a complaint. Anything rumbling around in that noggin of yours?
There is something rumbling around in my noggin, and of course I have to be careful on how I spew it out of my noggin.
Okay.
Do have a complaint.
All right.
One of the biggest complaints I have with the legal system, I'm a criminal defense lawyer, have been for 27 years, and the first 12 years spent in Metro Detroit before we moved north to northern Michigan. For the most part, the courts that I practice in, things are pretty consistent with the judges, the prosecutors, and some of the outcomes. You know, when somebody contacts your office, you sit down, you listen to their story, you find out the facts, were there any witnesses, try to apply it to the law that they're charged with. Now that you have an understanding of the facts and you see what the prosecutor is charging with, does it fit? Does the law that they're being charged with fit the facts? Meaning, does the prosecutor have a case? What's the strength of the prosecutor's case? And that's what we do as defense attorneys. We try to interpret and determine what the strength of the prosecutor's case is moving forward. Just because I say it all the time, someone's charged with a crime doesn't mean the prosecutor can prove it. And again, more often than not, individuals who are charged with certain misdemeanors, or low felonies and other crimes, are guilty of it. But again, what's the strength of the prosecutor's case, and can they prove it? Just because someone's charged with something doesn't mean as an attorney you throw your arms up and say, okay, they're charged, guilty. You have to fight the good fight, and you have to, do your job and do your due diligence. But for the most part, if the prosecutor can prove their case and your client is guilty of what they're claiming he or she is guilty of, you pretty much, as an experienced attorney, know what the outcome is going to be if you practice in those courts, if you know the judges and how they sentence people and what the prosecutors are willing to offer and what they're not willing to put on the table. But every now and then I travel outside of my jurisdiction and to a court that I don't normally practice in. And I don't do that often, but every now and then you have to. And my complaint is, I just wish there was more consistency with some of these elected officials, judges who get elected to the bench. Just because, folks, and I got to tell you, just because somebody holds a title or gets elected to any office doesn't mean that he or she is even qualified to hold that office. Just because somebody, is elected to the Senate, to the House, to a judicial position, again, some of these people are appointed at first and others are elected. The general public at times, and it's not their fault, Craig, they may not be in the best position to make a determination as to whether or not this individual who's running for that judgeship is qualified over the next one. They may recognize a name, or this person went out and campaigned more. Sometimes it's party affiliate. But I'm just going to say my complaint is that there are some individuals who are elected out there on certain benches that, if you take a closer look at their decisions and opinions that get overturned on the Court of Appeals and Supreme Court, they should not be on the bench. And I wish the public, there's a large part of the public that does pay close attention to this. But the sad thing is that you can go in front anywhere in the country or the world, but in this country, you can go before a judge who is not qualified to sit in that position, and they're making decisions that affect every lives for generations. People are getting incarcerated. People are losing their freedom. They're losing their homes, the custody of their children. You could list 12 to 15 to 50 different, topics here that how people's lives are affected by these individuals who are not even competent to sit in judgment of other people. So that's what it comes down to. My complaint is, and there's really, the only thing you can do about it is bring awareness to whoever these individuals are so that when the election takes place, they're not reelected. And I feel in the state of Michigan that judges should be termed out. I would like to see, on a national and state level, Craig, more of my truck driving friends, some of my iron workers out there, hold these positions. The problem is the way the political system is set up. It's you have to have a lot of money and you have to be connected and know people, and then it's just a lot of BS. But I'd like to revamp the whole system. I'd like to put Biker Bob in office, for goodness sakes. Someone like that, or the single mother, single father out there who's struggling to make ends meet. But I definitely like to get some of these iron worker friends of mine and family in a position of power to make some of these decisions. So that's my complaint.
Well, and you bring up a really good point. It's a political system. Unfortunately, it's governed for the people, by the people, but it's really most of the people who are in politics, with some rare exceptions, end up being career politicians, whether or not they just start off, term limits would help that. I think having a different point of view at times, not having the same person on the same at the same bench or in the same elected position for 20 or 30 or 40 years. Sometimes it's good to have a different view. Sometimes you need a different voice, and different voices can sometimes get different things done and better things done. So I think you're right. It needs to be more regular people, but unfortunately, like everything else, once those people get a hold of that seat, they don't want to lose it because there's a lot of money involved.
I favor those who run for office that have no prior political experience. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to tell people where I stand on politics. I think if people listen to the show, they know first and foremost we love our vets. We're strong constitutional guys. We love the Second Amendment. I think they know where we stand politically, but we're not a political show. The thing that upsets me the most as an attorney who travels to these courts is you come across individuals who have no business being in those positions. And for the most part, I'm not referring, and I better say this, right? I have no complaints with any of the judges that I practice in front of on a regular basis. I'm referring to an experience that I had, and it may have been years ago, in an outlying county, okay, way to the south of where I currently practice. And it just brings back, something triggered that memory a couple weeks ago. And some of these judges, again, they're elected and they have, a lot of power, but elected officials need to be reminded over and over that they work for us.
Yeah.
And we put them there. We pay their salaries.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's not the case. But I absolutely believe in term limits across the board at the state level, the local level, and the federal level. And especially, and a lot of my friends who are judges are not going to like this, especially at the judicial level. Give someone else a shot at it. Give someone else an opportunity at it. Maybe a 6-year term max, and that's it. And that's it. Because in Michigan, once you're an incumbent judge, it's very rare for other attorneys to oppose that judge, because there is fear that if you oppose the judge and you lose, that, it's going to be very uncomfortable for you and your clients. And don't think for a second that has not existed. and does not exist in these races. I mean, judges are political also. They are party affiliated, even though they run as independents in some cases, except for Supreme Court positions. You can determine who's what for that. But I just believe in term limits across the board for all elected officials. Enough's enough already.
Solid complaint on Memorial Day weekend. We got to take a break on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. When we come back, Denise Policello from Cannabis Attorneys of Michigan will be in the house. We will be right back on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. We here at the Levitt Law Firm have family and friends affected by the flooding in the Midland and Mid-Michigan areas. We have partnered with some of the country's leading class action lawyers and want to help you and your families get the justice you deserve. If you or a loved one has been affected by the dam breakage, call the Levitt Law Firm today at 989-772-6000. You may be entitled to join a class action lawsuit. 989-772-6000 for more information. Again, if you or a loved one has been affected by the dam breakage and flooding in the Midland and Mid-Michigan area, you may be able to join a class action lawsuit and get compensation. 989-772-6000.
It was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long. Caught somewhere between a boy and man. She was 17 and she was far from in between. It was summertime in northern Michigan. Splashing through the sandbar, talking by the campfire. It's the simple things in life, like when and where. We didn't have no internet, but man, I never will forget the way the moonlight shined upon her hair. And we were trying different things, and we were smoking funny things, making love out by the lake to our favorite song, sipping whiskey out the bottle, not thinking about tomorrow, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. Singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, broadcasting and podcasting in the middle of a beautiful green dog run course with German Shepherds barking abound. I'm not sure if you could hear the 120-pound, oversized, well-fed, but in great shape, one of my two German Shepherds that are currently strolling around the mothership here, Craig.
Yeah, you can hear them. Yes, you can hear them. They're loud. They're beautiful dogs, but yes, you could hear them for sure.
Can you hear that one barking in the background there?
Oh yeah.
She's barking at a fly. This female shepherd of mine, her eyesight is superhero. It's superhero-like. I mean, she can spot a fly and bark at it.
That's funny.
But hey, Craig, we've been attempting to have one of two special guests on the show today. We told the audience last week we were going to have a plethora of lawyers in the mothership, and it's Memorial Day weekend.
It's gone down to one.
we do have Denise, who is currently working on technical issues.
Yes.
She's working on those issues with big hair.
Which right there, you got to wonder how that's working out. But yeah, we'll see if that all plays out. Sunday morning trying to figure out technical things. God love the internet. It's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Hey, it is Memorial Day weekend, by the way, this weekend. So maybe you're going to be out and about. It might be a little cold to be on the water. But now that everything in northern Michigan has opened up, that's going to open up a lot of trails for ATVs, for four-wheelers, for maybe being out on the boat. Maybe you're going to go out and do some fishing or something like that, being outside. And, of course, that sometimes can lead to problems. Am I wrong?
You are correct, my fine feathered feline friend, otherwise known as Greg Russell, the muscle, the hustle. In most 50 states, there are statutes that speak to operating motor vehicles, boats, sleds, snow machines. Depends on where you live and what you call a snowmobile. I refer to it as a sled. Some people, Minnesota, Alaska, refer to it as snow machines. But we are in boating season, and side-by-side, four-wheeling, NASCAR racing, just turn it and burn it out there on the single tracks and dirt tracks and paved tracks. But again, we ask everyone to use due care and caution, be responsible. You can absolutely be charged with operating while intoxicated in a boat, on an ORV, on a side-by-side. For those that do not know what a side-by-side, Craig, is, how would you describe that?
Side-by-side, it's like a four-wheel ATV, but it's not with four wheels sometimes. It's two people sitting side-by-side. That's where the side-by-side part comes in.
Exactly. And in the great state of Michigan, thus we opened up with homegrown Kid Rock. We hope to have him on the show at some point in the next 100 years. Yeah. Craig, if you could make that happen.
Yeah, wish me luck.
But in the state of Michigan, if you are operating an off-road vehicle and you are not on a public roadway and you are intoxicated, yes, you can be stopped by the DNR who are patrolling or other law enforcement agencies that have jurisdiction. You could be charged, you could be arrested, and potentially convicted of operating while intoxicated on an ORV. Now, the interesting thing is, Craig, and most people may not know this, you would think, wait a minute, I'm not on a public roadway. I wasn't in what I refer to as a motor vehicle on a public roadway, as we've heard Todd talk about week after week.
Yeah.
So are there license sanctions, and am I going to lose my ability to operate a motor vehicle? Is it going to go on my driving record, my criminal history? Well, here's the interesting thing, at least in the state of Michigan, and I did my research, at least a dozen or more states. In Michigan, and I already knew this, there is a separate abstract that gets created, so it does not go on your driving record. So if you're operating an off-road vehicle on an off-road trail that's not on a public roadway, and you're charged and eventually convicted of, consuming alcohol at a certain legal limit on that vehicle, then the state of Michigan is going to create another abstract. So now you're going to have a driving record, and you're going to have like a sports utility vehicle off-road record, and it's going to go on that record. So the answer is you should not have anything affect your ability to operate a motor vehicle. There will be no driver's license sanctions against your Michigan driving abilities. So that's something that most people probably had no idea, right, Craig?
I didn't know about that. That's really interesting. And yeah, until I started talking to you, I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know. Is that the same also in the winter too? Would that also be the same for snowmobiling and things like that?
Yes, that is correct. Yes. But here's the thing. If you're operating a side-by-side or a four-wheeler or one of those other awesome sport vehicles that most 50 states have trails for, and you're on a public roadway and you're intoxicated, then you will be charged under the motor vehicle code of that state. In Michigan, under the 257 code. Anything and everything that has to do with a motor vehicle in Michigan falls under the 257 code. So every law, just look at it this way, Craig, every type of law, whether it's family law, probate law, wills and trust, commercial real estate law, there's stocks and bonds laws, there's laws that apply to everything. Our lives are governed by laws, literally. So if you think of it this way, in regards to, there's a criminal penal code. There's drug laws. In Michigan, all the drug laws fall under the 333 codes. And in Michigan, all the motor vehicle misdemeanors and felonies fall under the 257 code. So if you're on a side-by-side consuming alcohol and you leave the trail, you leave the two-track out of the woods, you pop out into a small town, or may not even be a town, you're just going to a gas station, a store to refuel, get something to drink, some food. Let's say you flip it over, officer comes on the scene, nobody's hurt, thank goodness. You're investigated, you're going to be placed under arrest for drinking and driving while operating that ORV under the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code, which is on a public roadway because you took that side-by-side or ORV or sled off of the back roads onto the public roadways. So you just switch jurisdiction and boom, it's going on your Michigan criminal history and your Michigan driving abstract.
Now, let me throw a wrench in this whole mess.
You could be arrested on a tractor intoxicated on a public roadway in the state of Michigan under the 257 code.
Now, what if you are riding a dirt bike? And maybe
Same thing.
Not on the
Same.
but not on a public road. But let's say you're riding it back on an ORV trail or something like that. It's not an ATV, and it is something that maybe would be street legal. Whereas ORVs and ATVs and four side by sides aren't necessarily always street legal. What is there any difference there, or since it's a motorcycle, would you be charged with the 257, or would it be charged under the off-road vehicle part?
The sport utility, as I refer to it, abstract.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, it depends on a number of different factors, Craig. Did the officer observe you operate that, 250, Yamaha, Suzuki,
Sure.
whatever it is you like to ride? My cousin AZ used to race those. So big shout out to AZ, man. He used to shred the gnar on those big motorcycles, and he definitely won some races for sure.
Right.
But the question is, does the officer observe you operating that dirt bike on a public roadway as you then exit onto one of those back ORV trails, you see, because now you're going to be charged with operating under the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code, the 257 code, if you're intoxicated and your blood alcohol level rises to a 0.08 or higher, unless you're under 21, in which case it's zero tolerance in the state of Michigan. Yeah, you could be charged with a 257 charge. Operating while intoxicated, or operating while visibly impaired, or super drunk, or under 21 with a BAC. There's 4 possibilities there. Or if you're just in the middle of nowhere on some off trail, again, not even accessible to a public roadway, and a DNR guy, Department of Natural Resources, who, by the way, our law enforcement in the state of Michigan, for those that live outside the state of Michigan, our DNR officers, and I may be wrong, but are affiliated with they're state troopers are what they are.
Okay.
So you could definitely be arrested on that ORV trail and charged with one of the 2 statutes.
So in other words, it doesn't really have anything to do with what you're driving. It's where you're driving it and intoxicated, whether it's on an ORV trail or on a public road. That's what determines your level of guilt and where your level of problems are going to be, not what.
Well, level
driving.
of guilt has yet to be determined, but whether or not you look, just because an officer, then there have been cases that I've seen whereby I've had clients who were charged under one code, and I'll bring it to the prosecutor's attention that it should be a different code. And so I've had some really fair prosecutors over the year just say, you know what, based on the facts of this case and the circumstances and no prior record, and the individual cooperated and didn't argue with the DNR officer, we're just going to nolly process it and dismiss it. We're not even going to move forward with the charges.
What about if you were intoxicated, say, on a boat? That's not that's not a road or an ORV trail.
Yeah, correct. You're not operating a boat on a public roadway or
No.
a parking lot accessible to a public roadway, albeit it does have a motor, albeit depending upon what size, 35 horsepower. I mean, I've seen pontoon boats with 100 horsepower motors that go on big lakes. You can be charged under certain statutes with operating while intoxicated in a motorboat in all 50 states. So you really have to be careful out there.
Yep.
Look, we don't want anybody out there to consume or take any type of prescription drug or otherwise in excess that's going to put anybody at risk, including yourself, your family, or other individuals you don't know. With that being said, you can still enjoy yourself, have cocktails on a boat. Just make sure you're doing it responsibly and you're not putting anybody else at risk. In the state of Michigan, that song that we've been playing, Kid Rock, who, by the way, is from the state of Michigan. Kid Rock, please come on our show. Get a hold of Craig or myself. Kid Rock, in that song, is he not talking about Torch Lake with the sandbar way up north?
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
tell the listeners about Torch Lake who may be listening out of state, Craig. Great lake. Big shout out to everybody on Torch Lake, by the way.
Torch Lake is an inland lake about 15, 20 miles off the coast of Lake Michigan. And it is some of the darkest, deepest, bluest, clearest water, and these huge sandbars, and they have these huge parties. I mean, sometimes they get out of hand, but it is lots of $500,000 million houses around this lake. It is just a beautiful, beautiful inland lake in Michigan. And of course, all the things you're talking about, whether it be ORV trails or riding off-road vehicles on a road or on boats, a lot of these, granted, we're talking mostly about Michigan, but in every state in the union, there's always going to be some kind of penalty for being caught drinking and driving on an off-road vehicle or on a boat or something like that. The laws might be different in your state if you're listening on the podcast, but just don't do it. Just don't do it.
And be sure if you're going to be on an ORV or in a side-by-side, wear a helmet. We always talk about shredding the gnar on single tracks. Even when I go out on just a street ride or I'm riding around town, I always wear a helmet. I used to be a lifeguard, and as such, I could be paddling or just standing in 2 feet of water in a kayak, and I'm still going to put a life preserver on. Yep. I mean, there's no reason you shouldn't take extra safety precautions. Look, how about, I can tell you this, I used to have a 16-foot Hobie Cat, okay? And I used to take it all over Michigan, especially I would watch the wind and what direction the wind was coming from. But there were dozens of occasions when I was, shredding the water, had my jib out and I was just tacking back and forth across the lakes. And I would catch the wind the wrong way, or I had the sail pointed in the wrong direction for whatever reason, and that Hobie Cat would take off and tip over. And I can't tell you how many times my noggin, slightly got touched by certain parts of the boat as it was tipping over. I used to actually wear a helmet because what if you get knocked out when you're on a Hobie Cat or any kind of sailboat?
You're in trouble.
You don't have a life preserver on your. I was typically by myself. It was a 2-person 16-foot Hobie, and if the mast, when you're on a Hobie Cat and you're tacking and you turn in a different direction and as you turn really quick and catch the wind, it could yank you in the other direction, but the mast, it just flips really quick. It depends on how you're controlling the boat. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you're going to let it out slowly. You're going to make sure if you let it out too fast, then you're going to tip it. So you don't want to do that. You don't want the sail to just, be let out all the way as you're turning to tack the other way because you're going to flip it. But when I was first learning how to use a Hobie Cat, I would do that a few times. And there was 1 or 2 occasions where the mast, as it was starting to turn in the other direction, did nick the top of my noggin. But somebody taught me to wear a helmet, so I had my bike helmet on. And I also had a life jacket on. And when you would tip over, you're going over in the water, and sometimes that sail would be on top of you. So can you imagine if you're doing something like that, slightly intoxicated, no helmet, no life preserver? I mean, your family's not going to see you again. So my point is, I know we're a law show, but I would just ask everyone out there, always use safety measures and precautions no matter what you're doing, no matter what the level of risk is, because you have no idea. Craig, some of my worst injuries on a mountain bike have been when I'm just on the way back to the trailhead and maybe my front tire or rear derailleur, get jacked by a stump or a twig or something. And then I do an endo over my bars, not even realizing it. So when you least expect it, because you can get injured, and it only takes a second.
It is a holiday weekend, and we want you to be safe. We have to take a break on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. We'll see if we can get somebody else on the show and talk more about Memorial Day weekend and laws and stuff like that. Coming back on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. We here at the Levitt Law Firm have family and friends affected by the flooding in the Midland and Mid-Michigan areas. We have partnered with some of the country's leading class action lawyers and want to help you and your families get the justice you deserve. If you or a loved one has been affected by the dam breakage, call the Levitt Law Firm today at 989-772-6000. You may be entitled to join a class action lawsuit. 989-772-6000 for more information. Again, if you or a loved one has been affected by the dam breakage and flooding in the Midland and Mid-Michigan area, you may be able to join a class action lawsuit and get compensation. 989-772-6000.
It was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long. Caught somewhere between a boy and man. She was 17 and she was far from in between. It was summertime in northern Michigan. the way the moonlight shined upon her hair. And we were trying different things, and we were smoking funny things, making love out by the lake to our favorite song, sipping whiskey out the bottle, not thinking about tomorrow, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. Singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show, broadcasting and podcasting in a beautiful green nutrient field in the middle of beautiful northern Michigan with my good friend Craig Russell, the muscle, the hustle, coming back strong with Kid Rock. We love Kid Rock. Please come on the show since Craig failed to contact your people and Uncle Ted Nugent's people to have either one of you on the show today. At least we can play some music. And for those of us that are from Michigan, and that song has a special place in our hearts because we love Northern Michigan. And in studio, Craig, who is in studio with us?
Well, you can hear the birds chirping at his house on
yeah,
Sunday
what is
morning.
it with those birds?
That's Big Hair, part of nature. That's what he is. Big Hair is part of nature.
Big Hair. Hey, Big Hair. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing real good, real good. I just had to have people this early in the morning turn off their backpack blowers and stuff. I got neighbors that are out here blowing already. Exactly. And I just screamed out the window at them and said, "Hey, I'm busy here.
What's
Give
that,
me a
Big
break."
Hair? Big Hair, I can't hear you. There's a blower in the background. Big Hair is in the mothership on Sunday morning. It's a holiday weekend. You got any big holiday weekend plans there, Big Hair?
Well, just going to be shredding the gnar. I mean, the Mother Nature's helping us out, and I'm hoping to get down and shred the gnar down to DTE and basically try to work off some of this fat I've had from sitting around for the last 6 weeks.
That'd be you gained the COVID-19, huh?
Oh, I did, and it was a good 19 pounds. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Before you go shredding the gnar, can you do something about those birds that are chirping in my noggin? I'm going to hear birds chirping all day in my head. Does your wife have bird feeders in and around your property there?
Yes.
Boy, those are loud. We're from northern Michigan. There's one way to get bird. I mean, look, I don't want to insult all the bird feeders out there, but we're from northern Michigan, and there's ways to get birds to stop chirping, Big Hair.
Well, I understand that, but the birds that I have around the house, which I love these birds. Actually, I've never had a house where I've had this many cardinals. I've got so many cardinals around this place, and cardinals are usually a loved one that has passed on, and they're coming back to see you. And I don't know what the deal is. Maybe all my friends that have passed on are coming back to see Big Hair. But I've got several cardinals around this property right now, and I love seeing those every morning. I love watching them.
I don't know what it is, but something about you knowing stuff about birds and things like that just doesn't really surprise me all that much. I don't know what it is.
Mrs. Big Hair enlightened me on that.
Oh, okay, Mrs. Big Hair. Is that what she's going by these days? Is she okay with that?
Well, she gives me a little education every now and again.
Hey, so I was told you were going to talk about some new endeavor or some financial thing, or what are you going to talk about? You were going to divulge some information or something?
Well, remember last year when everybody knows I like to mow yard, and I like to. I like to keep my property looking nice because it helps my value, it helps my neighbor's value, and then just people driving down the street, they're like going, "Oh my God, this guy takes care of his yard." Anyway, last year, I don't know, many of our listeners here probably remember, I kind of complained about the people across the street. Because the landlord, when he came over and mowed their yard, he'd only come over like once a month. And so the yard looked like a hayfield.
Okay.
And so actually, last weekend after we got done shredding the gnar, Todd and I and Commander, on my way home, my wife says, hey, I just bonused on some chairs for, we got a pond out on our farm that we can just put these chairs out on the farm. And they were from the neighbor across the street.
Okay.
And so when I got home, basically my wife said, sure, Big Hair will mow your yard.
She's now volunteering you to mow the lawn, is what she's doing.
And so I had to basically negotiate with her to mow her yard. I really don't know what to charge. I said, is $10 an hour fair? And so she says, yeah. And so I mowed her yard and trimmed it. Basically I'm going to treat her yard like I treat my yard. And so it took me a couple hours, and I got done. And then she brought over my $20 bill wrapped around a bottle of Corona.
Oh, there you go. Wow,
what kind of what are you talking about? You're a grown professional man. You have a professional job. You're charging some little old lady who has gray hair and walks very slow $10 each time you cut her lawn. Can't you just, out of the kindness of your big hair heart, just mow her lawn just because? You got to take $10, $20 from her?
She's younger than Big Hair.
She's not old.
Okay. Okay then. Hey now. Okay.
I was going to say, I was wondering if you're going to figure out a way to make this work 5 or 6 hours, Big Hair, and get $60 out of the deal. But since
Big Hair does not need the money. Let's just say that. We cannot disclose his identity or what he actually does for a living, or even who his wife is for that matter. But I just want to interject something here. Big Hair and I were at DTE Energy Trail last week, which is the best single-track trail in the Midwest. So for those of you listening out of state, for those of you listening in the state of Michigan, if you've ever been on a mountain bike, any type of mountain bike, if you have not yet been to DTE Energy Trail off of M52 north of Chelsea, Michigan, which is just off 94 west of Ann Arbor, Michigan, then you don't know what you're missing. But Big Hair, why don't you tell the story when we left after 30 miles of 2,000 feet of climbing, what we encountered and what happened.
Well, what we were doing is after we got done, Todd, was following the Prius up into Stockbridge there to the gas station. And because Todd needed to get gas, obviously the Prius doesn't need gas. That's for sure. I'm
always keeping my engine full. The listeners know that. If I need to bug out, if I need to go somewhere, I need to be ready to go. I can't go to a gas station if all heck breaks loose in society and our pumps don't work anymore. So I always keep my engine full.
Not in this case, but anyway. So Todd is following me up, following the Prius, because the Prius had some get up and go. And so when we got to the gas station, I just let Todd pull into the pump that he had to go to so that he could get his gas, and I pulled behind him just so that we could chat a little bit. So here a young lady comes pulling in. She pulls into the pump on the other side of us. And so she gets out of her car, and she, I believe it was unlocked, and gets out of her car. She walks into the gas station. And so Todd and I are standing there, and I keep looking and looking and looking, and I could see inside of her car there's a child in a car seat.
Oh.
Yeah, and let me just interject. The pumps, these gas pumps, were not close to where the actual building was that you go pay and get refreshments and whatever it is you need. I mean, this was the type of gas station where the pumps are quite a ways back, and Big Hair's Prius is behind my truck. I'm pumping gas. She gets out. She goes into the store. We're both looking at each other, and Big Hair's correct. Why don't you tell the listeners what we saw in the backseat of her car?
Yeah, in the backseat of a car was a child in a car seat. And so I kept looking, and I kind of said, man, I almost want to pull the car door just to see if it's unlocked.
And I said, no, don't even go near that car door. You don't even go near that door. So the two of us were just standing there, and 15 minutes later, literally, Craig, 15 minutes later, the lady is still in the gas station we're getting upset about this. Number one, we're protecting this child. This child must have been 2 years old or younger, sitting in a car, sound asleep in a car seat. It was just the most insane thing I've ever observed. It was disgusting. And I said to Big Hair, are you going to say something when she comes out? And what happens next, Big Hair?
Well, she comes walking out, and I told her, and I said, "Ma'am, do you realize?"
Well, wait a minute. She comes walking out.
That's right. With two handfuls of beer.
Yeah, she comes walking out, 2 handfuls of beer, and she, comes up to the vehicle. And Big Hair is standing between her car and our vehicles at where the gas pumps are. And he says to her, and she didn't see it coming. "Excuse me, ma'am." Go ahead, Big Hair. Take it from there.
Yeah, I basically said, "Excuse me, ma'am. Do you realize you just left a child unattended in a vehicle for over 15 minutes. The biggest problem that I had was her answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Her answer was, well, what do you want me to do? There's a virus.
Yeah, what was I supposed to do? Take the child into the gas station? Yeah. First off, we're in northern Michigan. Well, not more southern, northern. It was more southern Michigan where we were at. But there was no one in the gas station. And I'm telling you, it was absurd that we were standing there watching this unfold, protecting the child. I mean, it was sad. It was really sad because you hear these stories on national TV, what happens in other cases, and you know, and she was emotionally distraught after you approach her. Big Hair, he was a little curse with her, rightfully so.
Yeah,
and she almost started crying. But he did mention that, you know, he was just about to call CPS, Child Protective Services, if she was to take, you know, a minute longer. And, you know, it was really sad. It was really sad that we had to witness this. But the happy ending was that we were there to make sure that nothing went wrong.
Yeah, but you know what? Not every time there's going to be somebody there who's going to make sure everything goes right. Sometimes there's going to be somebody there to break the window and take the car and take the baby with him.
Yeah, Big Hair let her have it. I mean,
good for you, Big Hair.
And he wasn't disrespectful, but, you know, Big Hair's a parent. I'm a parent. He's a grandparent. Big Hair's a great-grandparent, for that matter. And he told her what she had to hear.
Good.
Yeah, I bet she won't do that again.
And basically, I told her, I said, you know, I wanted to leave about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, we were done. We were ready to go.
But I did not want to leave this child unattended. I thought it was against the law myself. I didn't think you could leave a child in a vehicle unattended. She did have the windows cracked a little bit, but still.
Well, there are laws for parental. There are parental neglect laws on the books, Big Hair.
Yeah.
And by the way, quick to deviate for a moment in the first segment, Big Hair, we were talking about term limits in the state of Michigan. I do want to add that, and this is completely, people are thinking, what's Todd talking about? Our House and Senate at the state level, we do have term limits, and so I'm happy about that. We were talking about I want term limits in the courts and, you know, across the board on a federal level and the state level, all across the country, Big Hair, term limits. How do you feel about that? Actually, we probably have to go to break, right, Craig?
We do. We can talk. We'll bring that up. What say you, Big Hair? You're all for it, you said?
All for it.
All for it.
Yep.
That's all we need to know.
That's all we need to know.
We'll be back to wrap up the show coming up on the Todd L. Levitt Law Show. We here at the Levitt Law Firm have family and friends affected by the flooding in the Midland and Mid-Michigan areas. We have partnered with some of the country's leading class action lawyers and want to help you and your families get the justice you deserve. If you or a loved one has been affected by the dam breakage, call the Levitt Law Firm today at 989-772-6000. You may be entitled to join a class action lawsuit. 989-772-6000 for more information. Again, if you or a loved one has been affected by the dam breakage and flooding in the Midland and Mid-Michigan area, you may be able to join a class action lawsuit and get compensation. 989-772-6000.
It was 1989, my thoughts were short, my hair was long. Caught somewhere between a boy and man. She was 17 and she was far from in between. summertime in northern Michigan. Splashing through the sandbar, talking by the campfire. It's the simple things in life, like when and where. We didn't have no internet, but man, I never will forget the way the moonlight shined upon her hair. And we were trying different things, and we were smoking funny things, making love out by the lake to our favorite song, sipping whiskey out the bottle, not thinking about tomorrow, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. Singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long.
Welcome back to the Todd L. Levitt Law Show with birds chirping in the background because Big Hair is out feeding the little critters on a beautiful northern Michigan day. Coming back with Kid Rock. We love you, Kid Rock. Come on the show sometime since Craig failed to get Uncle Ted and or your people to bring you on the show. Talking with my good friend Big Hair, Memorial Day weekend. Massive love to all the vets who sacrificed so much, since the inception of our country and before that, so that we could be here today having this conversation with you out there.
And Big Hair with the birds chirping in your own nature preserve there. They're super loud. Boy, they just keep getting louder, it seems like. Maybe I'm just hearing them louder.
Stop feeding the chickadees there, Big
And your
Hair.
Cardinals. And your
Yeah.
there's Tiger fans in this state who don't really like the Cardinals. I'm just going to tell you that. Do you possibly know that?
In fairness to the bird feeders out there, we have a lot of bird feeders, and I've seen some really cool woodpeckers, and I've seen birds I never knew existed. And I'm not going to say whether or not one of my German shepherds has successfully caught any of those birds at any given time, or the squirrels, but I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of, like I said earlier, we've got a lot of cardinals around. And then Mrs. Big Hair also has a lot of feeders for finches. And
Yeah, they're yellow, right? Yellow finches?
some of them, yellow, brown. There's some that have a little bit of red in them. She knows them all. We'll sit there out in the backyard and watch the finches. And then it's even funnier because she's got some bird feeders, or the feeders, that are squirrel proof.
So now we are learning all about Big Hair's nature preserve and everything going on there. Big Hair, have you got any big, other than shredding the gnar, are you going to grill out or do any big holiday weekend plans? What do you got planned?
Yeah, well, always got to take care of the cemeteries. My mother, my uncle. My uncle is a veteran, so we'll go over and plant flowers at the cemetery, and I'll probably be getting together with my nephew and my wife's boys, and probably just go out to the. We've got a pond on our farm. And we'll probably just hang out there, throw the poles in the pond, and grill out over there.
And Todd, you got any other big weekend plans? What are you up to?
Well, I'm going to spend some time with Big Hair shredding the single track trails throughout today and tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll hit DT Energy Trail, then we'll hit the Vasa single track, maybe catch Arcadia, maybe Grayling, Hanson Hills, and finish up with Mid-Michigan Community College. Again, happy Memorial Day to all the families and vets and everybody who has given so much to this great country of ours.
Yes, thank you very much. Have a great holiday weekend. Todd, I hate to break the news to you, but we got to go. The show's over.
Come on, Craig. What about Denise? Denise didn't even come on the show today.
We'll get Denise on next week. We'll get Denise
next
on.
Wednesday, Denise, for sure. Big Hair, thanks for coming on. Everybody have a safe, happy, healthy weekend. And we're not here for a long time, Craig. What are we here for?
We're here for a good time.
Take us out with a little Kid Rock who's coming on the show whenever Craig gets a hold of his people. See you next week.
And we were trying different things, and we were smoking funny things, making love out by the lake to our favorite songs, sipping whiskey out the bottle, not thinking about tomorrow, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long. Singing Sweet Home Alabama, oh, summer long.
The Todd L. Levitt Law Show, brought to you by Chad Malley Well Drilling of Rosebush, Clark Modular Homes, your most experienced and trusted builder in Mount Pleasant, and attorney Todd L. Levitt, not just a litigator, he's an advocator.
Opinions expressed on this radio program do not necessarily reflect the views of this radio station.